Well, you know, the rap against your party, sir, is that you don't know how to negotiate. You're lousy at it, and you have a track record where the Democrats constantly seem to get the better of you. How do you answer that?
Marjorie Taylor Greene continues to defend her decision to declare war on Speaker Mike Johnson, even as Newsmax and Fox News continue to publicly shred Republicans very often to their face about their party's chaos. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bell before you go. I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, friends, it seems that the backlash, even within the Republican Party and the conservative right in general in this country, regarding their series of defeats last week, the fact that they had to swallow a $1.2 trillion spending bill, which keeps the government funded, the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene has begun the process of trying to oust Republican Speaker Mike Johnson, and the fact that Mike Gallagher, one of the latest Republicans, is resigning from office prematurely in such a way as it narrows the ever-narrowing majority of House Republicans. The backlash continues. Newsmax and Fox News are fed up with it. I'm going to play you some clips, but before I do, I want to show you this most recent one of Marjorie Taylor Greene, in which she continues to defend her decision to effectively declare war on Mike Johnson, and she actually is increasing the rhetoric in terms of her assessment of him. Because previously she says, listen, Mike Johnson's a nice guy, he's a good guy, I just don't think he's a good speaker. Now she's taking it a bit further.
That's how we lose the majority, not because Marjorie Taylor Greene filed a motion to vacate against a Republican speaker that betrayed everyone worse than any Republican speaker in decades. That I'm not the
A Republican speaker who's betrayed Republicans worse than anybody in decades? Eesh, that doesn't sound like a slight disagreement in leadership strategy, right? I mean, so it sounds like even over the past, 48, 72 hours, her rhetoric regarding Johnson is becoming increasingly militant. It's also kind of perplexing. I wonder how Donald Trump factors into all this, because she's devoutly loyal to Trump. So is Mike Johnson. Trump probably doesn't care, or is probably too stupid to weigh in on this, but it's fascinating. I wonder what his contribution is to the matter. Then that brings us to other Republicans, people like Andy Biggs, Republican congressman, who was on Newsmax, and man, he got read the riot act, even as he seemed sympathetic to Marjorie Taylor Greene's decisions. We're going to play a couple of clips from this interview and unpack it together.
If you want to talk performance of Speaker Johnson, I'm as dismayed and disappointed as anybody. There are some things that I think that he's done better than I thought the former speaker did, and there's some things that I think he continues to do that the former speaker did that aggravate everyone. So if people who liked McCarthy, they're like, well, we didn't get a change. And people who felt McCarthy didn't keep us promises and we had problems with that, we feel like Speaker Johnson has failed to deliver everything that he indicated he delivers. So it's really frustrating right now.
The reason it's frustrating is because you guys don't have the margins or the votes to dictate terms to House Democrats, really, and certainly not the Senate. Very often Senate Republicans are in opposition to you, by the way, and not the White House. Again, what it is it's Republicans struggling with electoral math and the math of the House of Representatives. They really, really think that having a razor-thin majority, which is highly dysfunctional, in one chamber of one branch, that they get to be the tail that wags the dog. They can't fathom that the reality is they have some leverage for some concessions, but that's not going to be, certainly not going to be a situation in which they impose their will on everybody else. But it's not even going to be a 50-50 situation. It can't be, right? It's going to be an 80-20 thing at best. They just can't fathom this idea that they can't set the terms of the House of Representatives the way that they very often do in terms of the media narrative. But then Biggs gets pushback from these Newsmax hosts.
In the House, Congressman, you think things are good for the Republican Party?
I think that we get along better than most people would think. I think that, look, I try to...
You understand why I'm asking, right? Kevin McCarthy abandoned you, Ken Buck abandoned you, and Mike Gallagher just announced on Friday that he's going to resign on April the 13th. You got a one-vote majority. What's going on in the House?
Well, I don't know why Kevin left, and I'm not sure I know why Ken or Mike Mike left, or Mike's leaving and Ken left. I don't know why they're leaving. I don't think it's because of necessarily the things going on in the House, because they all three of them knew we had a really thin majority anyways, 4-seat majority. Now it's down to 1. There's just a few things left that we were going to need to do, like FISA reform that has to be done. And we're told that we're going to get a floor vote on that amendments. There's going to be consideration probably of some kind of supplemental. The question is, will we do it the way Mike did it the first time, which was the right way, where you actually pay for your supplemental?
Yeah.
So just the look on the male host's face where he's just so perplexed, like, this is obviously a disaster for you all. I'm asking these rhetorical questions because clearly things are not going well for the Republican Party in the House of Representatives. And then to use the language of abandonment, he's like, yeah, Kevin McCarthy's abandoning you, Ken Buck, Mike Gallagher. And there's always the possibility that between now and November, we will see further attrition within the House of Representatives. As a matter of fact, Ken Buck, before he left Congress, hinted, based on his words, that there would be further resignations beyond Gallagher. So it's interesting to see. But again, just the total lack of self-awareness. If Biggs is aware of that razor-thin majority, see how he's selectively, look, guys, of course it's not going great. We have a razor-thin majority. Well, then temper your expectations, man. Stop trying to dictate terms to everybody. Stop trying to thump your chest as though you're in command here. It's like one of those things like The Dark Knight Rises when Bane lays his hand on, and I'm blanking on the actor's name, but he's like, do you feel in charge? Like, you don't have the leverage to be in charge. And he recognizes it when Newsmax calls him out for it, but he doesn't recognize it when evaluating Johnson. I say this as somebody who despises Mike Johnson as a political figure. He has terrible policies, terrible values. He's a religious zealot, a theocrat. But it's the disconnect, the dissonance that plagues this party is fascinating to me. Setting Newsmax aside, it's also on Fox News. I mean, here you have Neil Cavuto, who's one of the blunter straight shooters on the Fox Propaganda Network. This is him kind of reading the riot act to Mark Wayne Mullen, a Republican senator. This is what Neil Cavuto had to say to Mark Wayne Mullen's face.
Well, the rap against your party, sir, is that you don't know how to negotiate. You're lousy at it, and you have a track record where the Democrats constantly seem to get the better of you. How do you answer that?
Well, I think it's because the Democrats have they do a good job about staying together, and the Republican Party, it's like trying to herd cats. Everybody's going different.
It wasn't always that way. My God, until the age of Trump, it was actually the very opposite. But that just goes to show you how toxic he is. I actually feel bad for Mark Wayne Mullen because here he is again being excoriated by a Fox News host.
The Republican majority in the House is getting slimmer by the day. It's now 217 to 213. Republican Congressman Gallagher is going to leave soon in a few weeks. What do you think of what's going on in the House?
Well, I think they're in a little bit of disarray. I've said this quite a bit. People in politics will hurt you a lot to gain themselves a little. And what's happened here is in the House.
People in politics will hurt you a lot to gain a little. Who does that sound like? Who in modern politics does that sentiment embody the most? Donald Trump, Mark Wayne Mullen's cult leader, the leader of Mark Wayne Mullen's party. Again, just the dissonance on full display. Yeah, these narcissistic politicians, they'll make these foolish errors for like short-term self-aggrandizement just a little bit, and they'll inflict serious damage to the party. Yeah, of course, that's the ethos that Donald Trump taught your party, and none of you had the strength, the character, the integrity to reject it. You had every opportunity, particularly after January 6th. But instead, you have come crawling back to the very man who has infused that ethic in your party. So to me, it's fascinating. I mean, you see that, again, the right-wing commentators on Fox News and even Newsmax, that they're fed up with it. But this is what happens. This is the party they've helped create. This is the party that Fox News and Newsmax helped create. And they're all kind of surprised, like, wow, these, unserious, uncurious culture warriors who are really good at complaining about whether there's a black mermaid in the new Disney movie or a black elf in the new Lord of the Rings TV show, but they're not serious about governing. When you give them power and expect them to govern, even just a little bit, this is what it gets you. Yes, you've all created this together, and your party is suffering the consequences, and to some extent, so are the American people, because we could be getting things done if Democrats were in control of both chambers, particularly progressive Democrats who are willing to part ways with the filibuster on certain issues, et cetera, and so forth. But yeah, this is the situation that they've created. And it's just so funny to me watching them have to be confronted with it time and time again. I wonder, as we get closer to the election, if we're going to see more blunt talk and increasing frustration from Fox News and Newsmax and OAN. Let me know what you think in the comments.